I think it's pretty safe to say that this is probably the most corrupt Treasury Department in our nation's history. And while you dance around questions to protect Trump, Americans are suffering in Trump's spiraling economy. Inflation is now rising faster than average hourly wages.
Linda Sánchez thoroughly dismantled the Trump Treasury Department before Congress during a monumental legislative session. The representative and lawyer leveraged a pivotal 1962 Supreme Court decision to entirely unmask Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He was frantically attempting to conceal the extraordinary favors bestowed upon Donald Trump, specifically absolute exemption from IRS reviews, which is a safeguard denied to every other citizen. This is not a functioning government. It operates as an illicit protection network for the president and his sprawling family enterprise. As everyday citizens face severe hardships under a deteriorating economy, his administration transforms the federal treasury into a private fortress excusing financial misconduct and unethical behavior. View this footage immediately and click the subscribe button to back our content. Bessent and his associates are trapped in a tight corner with absolutely zero options for retreat.
Mr. Chairman, Secretary, nice to have you back before our committee. Mr. Secretary, do you believe that all Americans should follow our tax laws?
Yes, Congressman.
Yes, good. So do I. And do you believe that for those Americans who break our tax laws, they should be audited or held accountable?
Well, I think there are two things there. An audit is not a result of breaking the law.
Yes or no? Simple question.
Well, no, it's not a simple question. It's
okay, then let me break it into two. Do you think they should?
If you're asking me,
please don't
should every
interrupt
taxpayer
me.
be audited?
Please answer that. I came here for answers. If you came here to waste time, I'm going to try to make sure you don't do that. Do you believe that people who lie on their tax returns should be audited?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that people who break our laws should be held accountable, our tax laws?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Very simple. Not a hard question. I'm glad we agree. So why is it that you are allowing President Trump to have complete immunity from being audited?
Again, I'm going to have to refer you to my previous statement. And
what was your previous statement, sir?
I am unable to comment on any of the ongoing litigation.
Okay, can you name the ongoing case concerning President Trump's immunity from audit?
Sorry?
Can you name?
There are three cases.
Can you name them, please?
That are out there now, and I will be happy to get back to you on those, because again, I am not a lawyer.
Okay.
We are represented by the DOJ.
Great. You said that you can't because there's ongoing litigation. You'll get me the name of the ongoing litigation, because the only ongoing litigation that I know of is surrounding the $1.8 million slush fund, which has already been suspended.
Representative Linda Sánchez just stated unequivocally that we are likely witnessing the most unethical Treasury Department in the history of the United States. As Secretary Scott Bessent evades all inquiries to run interference for Donald Trump, everyday citizens are enduring immense hardship within a failing economy. The cost of living is currently outpacing standard hourly income. Fuel costs have reached unprecedented peaks directly due to the Iranian conflict. Supermarket expenses climbed by over 3% recently, and costs for basic goods have exploded thanks to the president's careless trade penalties. Households are fighting to afford meals while the president's allies amass wealth, yet the true controversy extends well beyond these severe fiscal disasters. The primary problem remains the illicit exemptions handed to Donald Trump and his relatives, specifically total shielding from tax reviews, which constitutes an unparalleled advantage denied to everyone else. Such a safeguard might effortlessly preserve tens of millions of dollars in tax liabilities for his household. This serves as unquestionable evidence that the president transformed a federal agency into a private instrument for his own monetary defense. Even as diligent workers face exhaustive financial reviews over every penny, the commander-in-chief and his relatives simply function completely outside our established legal boundaries. This does not resemble legitimate leadership. It is essentially mob-style favoritism executing at the absolute peak of federal authority. The frantic justifications from Bessent merely validate our existing theories that this current administration functions solely to insulate one individual and his affluent friends from facing justice.
The fact is that the judge's ruling in the litigation that references that slush fund only addresses the anti-weaponization fund. It doesn't even address Trump's immunity from audit. So I would like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the judge's order in the Floyd versus Department of Justice case.
Without objection.
Thank you. Now, Secretary, you said you're not an attorney. Is that correct?
Mercifully.
Okay. Well, I am, and I'm actually proud to be an attorney and know the laws, and I know how to read a judicial ruling. Furthermore, I know that since 1962, the Supreme Court has held that ongoing litigation does not prevent someone from testifying in a congressional hearing. So once again, I'm going to ask, why are you allowing President Trump and his family to have complete immunity from being audited?
Again, since you're a lawyer, you will understand that the U.S. Treasury and the IRS are represented by the Justice Department and the acting Attorney General.
Yes, but I just mentioned a Supreme Court case that doesn't bar you from testifying. It's pretty clear to me, though, however, that you're not interested in answering questions. You're interested in arguing. Let me ask you this question. If President Biden amended a prior tax return and claimed that he was owed $1 billion, do you think that that would be audited, or should it be audited?
I'm not going to talk about any
because you're not really here to answer questions. I don't understand why you wouldn't audit that, and I don't understand why you wouldn't do the same for President Trump. So the ruling by the Justice Department,
do you have specific knowledge of an audit of President Trump?
Excuse me. It's my time. You're not here to
knowledge?
ask me questions. I'm here to ask you questions, and hopefully you're here to try to answer some of them. I'm curious to know who counts as Trump's family for the purposes of this immunity. Is it his children, his in-laws, his grandchildren, his second or third cousin, his great-great-grandchildren? Do you know the answer to that question, Mr. Secretary?
Again, I imagine you have the Justice Department phone number. I would suggest you call them.
I'm not the one that runs the Department of the Treasury or that oversees what is happening with this immunity has been granted.
I'm not the one either. We follow the instructions of our lawyers, and we obey the law,
I hope that you're proud of your performance today, Mr. Secretary, because
I hope you get some social media
I think it's pretty
clip.
safe to say that this is probably the most corrupt Treasury Department in our nation's history. And while you dance around questions to protect Trump, Americans are suffering in Trump's spiraling economy. Inflation is now rising faster than average hourly wages. Gas prices are at an all-time high with the war in Iran. The cost of groceries has risen 3.2% over the past years, and prices on most goods have gone up because of Trump's tariffs. So I don't see how you could call that anything other than a failure of the most corrupt Treasury Department in history.
Your time has expired, Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you.
Representative Linda Sánchez, a highly capable and veteran legal professional, laid a flawless snare. She brilliantly compelled Secretary Scott Bessent to concede to a trio of fundamental concepts universally grasped by the public. Initially, every resident is required to obey national revenue statutes. Next, individuals falsifying their financial filings ought to face strict investigations. Finally, anybody violating these revenue codes needs to be brought to justice. Because these points were clear, equitable, and direct, Bessent possessed zero alternatives aside from agreeing. Subsequently, the Congresswoman sprang her snare using a single crushing inquiry regarding why Donald Trump receives absolute exemption from financial reviews. The Secretary instantly fell back on his rehearsed justification regarding active court proceedings. However, as the representative pushed the witness to identify just a single exact lawsuit, he completely stalled. The official failed to cite even one example. He stumbled over his words, asserted that a few lawsuits existed somewhere, and ultimately made a pitiful confession that he lacks a law degree. The representative proceeded to absolutely dismantle his whole argument. She disclosed how the sole pertinent legal battle centers around a highly disputed billion-dollar reserve meant to reward Capitol rioters alongside political cronies of the president. The judicial decree regarding that specific matter remains entirely unrelated to bestowing tax review exemptions upon the Commander-in-Chief. This stands as one of the most remarkably brazen displays of dishonesty ever witnessed on the legislative floor. Bessent did not appear at the hearing to provide answers. He arrived solely to stonewall and defend the president regardless of the consequences. As the president and his relatives benefit from absolute impunity, everyday citizens endure hostile financial probes and severe fines. This situation lacks any fairness. It represents supreme institutional rot and serves as glaring proof that this administration operates on dual standards, favoring elite circles while penalizing the general public.
I would love for you to respond to the accusations at your department.
Chairman, thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Last year, one of President Trump's first actions was to put his billionaire donor, Elon Musk, in charge of the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. By the end of Musk's short but destructive tenure, DOGE had nearly quadrupled its original budget, lost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars in estimated interest and fee revenue, and paid 200,000 federal employees roughly $22 billion to stop working. DOGE was a massive failure. It turns out moving fast and breaking things and having no clue what the heck you're doing is not the most efficient way to govern. Unfortunately, DOGE's destruction wasn't limited to wasting taxpayer dollars and gutting the federal service. DOGE staffers also abused their position to gain access to taxpayers' sensitive private data. Mr. Secretary, on January 31st, 2025, you personally granted DOGE access to one of the Treasury Department's payment systems at the Bureau of the Fiscal Service. This database houses Americans' most sensitive data, including Social Security numbers and bank account information. Shortly after, my colleagues and I requested the GAO review DOGE's unprecedented access to this critical payment system. GAO completed that report last month, and I asked for unanimous consent to insert it in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. GAO's audit determined that a DOGE employee was inadvertently granted temporary access to create, modify, and delete data from the payment system. Mr. Secretary, you failed to impose basic safeguards that left millions of Americans' personal data vulnerable to unauthorized access and abuse. And so my question for you is, do you take responsibility for that? And what specific measures, if any, have you taken afterwards to protect the affected individuals' data and rebuild confidence in your department's handling of sensitive information?
Again, would you care to look up what does inadvertent mean?
Have you taken, but you're in charge. You are responsible for this. Do you take responsibility for that? Do you take responsibility?
I will take responsibility.
Okay, and then
and again,
what has been done to make sure that can never happen again?
Congresswoman, it was read-only. They had no ability to edit.
What has happened to make sure that never happens again?
We have, just as we have at the IRS, we have tightened up all protocols on systems.
This represents the ultimate legal strike that Scott Bessent dreaded most. Going back to 1962, the highest court firmly decided that active lawsuits cannot excuse any individual from providing congressional testimony. Bessent fully understood this established law but intentionally opted for silence to insulate Donald Trump and his relatives from facing justice. To frame this clearly, just picture Joe Biden altering an old financial filing to demand $1 billion in returns. Federal tax authorities would immediately initiate an intense investigation as expected, whereas Trump receives absolute protection with zero reviews, inquiries, or penalties. Such unprecedented shielding extends beyond the man himself to include his children, extended relatives, descendants, and various connected corporate organizations. This paints an accurate picture of a mob-ruled nation where his administration established a dual justice system, applying severe regulations and brutal penalties to average citizens while the president and his relatives simply function entirely beyond legal constraints. Such an unlawful advantage might effortlessly assist the president in dodging hundreds of millions in financial obligations rightfully owed to the public treasury. Even as countless diligent households face severe scrutiny and fines from revenue agencies over small mistakes, his relatives receive blanket permission to potentially conceal enormous monetary transactions. The dismal display from Bessent represented a deliberate stonewalling effort rather than mere professional incompetence. Throughout this administration, the federal treasury ceased working for the national population, acting instead like a private armor protecting one unethical dynasty and their partisan friends.
I guess that's not very specific, but the GAO also found that a DOJ staffer sent an unencrypted file containing USAID payment information and individuals' names to external DOJ personnel at the General Services Administration. Soon after it was reported, no disciplinary action was taken, despite the employee's failure to protect federal and non-federal employees' sensitive personal data and comply with security requirements. So again, Mr. Secretary, when employees who violate IT security rules are not held accountable, what does that message send to agencies? And why don't you hold someone accountable?
Why are you bringing up USAID with me?
Because a DOJ staffer, GAO found that a DOJ had payment information. Payment information.
USAID, I do not oversee. I wear many hats in this administration, not one.
And this is still, this is a file containing payment information. Are you not in charge also of the Treasury?
That has USAID. That has nothing to do with us.
But payment information has nothing to do with you.
Again, it was not sourced at the Treasury. Why are you bringing this up with me?
So GAO provided 6 recommendations to address identified weaknesses, including ensuring staff agree to comply with IT security rules and configuring systems to detect and prevent the transmission of unencrypted payment data. The report states that the fiscal service, again, the fiscal service, part of your agency agreed that 3 of the recommendations, or agreed with 3 of the recommendations and did not state whether it agreed or disagreed with the other 3. So, Mr. Secretary, can you confirm Treasury's position? This is part of your purview, that Treasury's position on all 6 recommendations. And if you agree that they're warranted, please let us know. And if you disagree with the recommendations, please explain why.
Again, I don't have a copy of the recommendations in front of me. Your office did not share them in advance. We'd be happy to get back to you. That we would obviously agree with the ones where we've already agreed.
So I hope that you understand that these are findings from the GAO about ensuring that information is protected. And again, we have seen access to taxpayer information at leaks. What are you doing to address this? And are you taking responsibility? People don't have faith that the access has been given against the law.
Well, again, President Trump and his family and employees of the Trump organization, 400,000 people, had their tax returns stolen at the IRS.
You are in charge. What are you doing to prevent that? Americans, people's sensitive information has been leaked outside.
And your time has expired.
We have tightened the protocols. We have tightened access.
And you have said nothing specific of what you've done to ensure.
Ms. Delveni, your time has expired. Mr. Estes is recognized.
Good to see you, Congresswoman.
The Congresswoman's approach was refreshing, yet the misconduct extends far beyond the president's unlawful tax review exemptions, as this administration is currently exposing the private information of countless citizens to severe danger. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent directly authorized Elon Musk's newly formed Department of Government Efficiency to enter the most highly classified financial networks within his agency. These specific databases hold the Social Security records, banking credentials, and incredibly sensitive monetary data belonging to tens of millions of people across the country. A scathing Government Accountability Office assessment revealed that these staff members received alarming administrative privileges, which included the power to generate, alter, and erase records because of grossly negligent supervision. More alarmingly, workers forwarded unsecured documents packed with delicate transaction details to outside organizations without facing a single professional consequence. This represents a completely unparalleled internal hazard to our domestic digital safety. During this presidency, fundamental security protocols were entirely disregarded, abandoning millions of citizens to the harsh realities of identity theft, financial deception, and systemic exploitation. As the commander-in-chief and his relatives bask in absolute immunity from financial investigations, the highly personal data of everyday people is being carelessly thrown into the open. This supposedly streamlined efficiency department operates as nothing beyond a damaging and unethical engine that squanders public funds, dismantles national safeguards, and currently threatens the monetary confidentiality of our entire country. The current leadership does not merely cover up their own fiscal misconduct, they readily jeopardize the safety of every citizen to accommodate their wealthy friends and their disruptive political plans. Representative Linda Sánchez accomplished what numerous colleagues feared attempting by utilizing established statutes and undeniable evidence to reveal the actual nature of this deeply compromised federal agency. Scott Bessent possessed zero genuine responses, leaving him to merely evade, pivot, lash out, and frantically run interference for the president. His dismal showing served as an ideal representation of a leadership team that prioritizes the desires of a single household over the welfare of the American populace. The president and his loyalists do not simply wish to govern the country, they demand absolute exemption from all legal consequences. While normal families battle soaring inflation, explosive living costs, and the perilous leaking of their private details, the chief executive and his family maneuver entirely beyond the regulations governing the rest of us. This constitutes glaring, unapologetic graft functioning at the absolute peak of federal power. If you feel equally furious about these developments, please like this video, subscribe, and become a part of our community today to back our push for honesty and justice. Leave your opinions in the comment section below regarding where you believe these perilous exclusive perks will lead us and how we must proceed to halt this behavior. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to view this broadcast.